One of the biggest parts of the Soulsborne series definitely has to do with the combat, as they all revolve around this feature. And while most other games we play also have a big focus on combat and enemies, there's definitely a distinct feel that the Soulsborne series has that no other game can match. So I thought a good idea would be to rank each Soulsborne game from worst to best based on the combat mechanics. As always, if you find this type of content entertaining, then make sure to subscribe so we can hit 1K, and let's get started. It was between Dark Souls and Demon Souls for last place, but I ended up picking Dark Souls for a few reasons. First of all, weapon design in this game is probably the most boring it'll ever be, and I've touched on this before, but any weapon that has a unique attack requiring repair powder is really lame to me. I understand this is a thing in Dark Souls 2 as well, but I think it's worse here. The magic in this game is fine, pyromancy is cool for those who don't want to invest in a stat, but the spells themselves don't really have much variety yet. My main issues are that the combat in this game feels really clunky with how you can only roll in 4 directions, or how healing interrupts fights so easily. And if I'm being honest, the combat may be my least favorite main focus of the game, as I feel like the reason that I do replay Dark Souls is for the world more than anything. Demon Souls is the next obvious answer, and you could put this in last place as well, and I wouldn't strictly disagree with you. I think that with the remake, it persuaded me to move it up a little bit since Dark Souls hasn't really gotten that same treatment, but most of what I said about Dark Souls applies here. Movement is still very clunky, weapons and spells aren't great yet, but I do think healing is better because while yes, grass is consumable, at least you get like a billion different types to use throughout the game, and the animation for using them isn't that long. But regardless of it not being in last place, the game is definitely dated. It hurts to do this because there is real upside with Dark Souls 2 and how it honestly has some of the best build variety in the series, but that doesn't change the fact that a lot of players are turned off because of how clunky the controls can feel at first. A huge part of this is that the game uses manual attack aiming controls rather than automatically correcting your character's orientation like other games in the series. And I've heard some say if you learn how to use this well, then it can be at your benefit, but I personally feel like it just turns players off and is another unnecessarily clunky feature guarding a normal playthrough, similar to adaptability. Also, healing brings you to a full stop again, and for some reason, your health bar takes longer to fill up. So, great. Now, it starts to get a little tricky when it comes to the number 4 spot, but ultimately, I think the correct answer for me here is Dark Souls 3. It's mechanically the tightest game in the trilogy, and it has some awesome weapons and weapon designs, and this game finally added back FP from Demon Souls, which is way better than the weapon breaking system of DS and DS2 for cool weapons. Although, I guess weapons can still break in this game. It should be said that the balancing in Dark Souls 3 is criticized a lot, since if you use a straight sword and just spam R1, then you'll probably beat the game really easily. I also think a reason it's not in the top 3 is how huge of a step back it is in terms of build variety. It just feels like there's less material in the game, or there's some weapons that look cool aesthetically but then suck mechanically, and this can be really frustrating. But Dark Souls 3 is definitely the best so far. Elden Ring is the best that the Dark Souls combat loop has ever been in my opinion. Excellent build variety, amazing weapons, and it's also just really polished in general. Spells are really cool in this game, although I will say shifting through them all, since you can have so many at a time, is pretty annoying. The Ash of War system really makes the player try out everything, especially because upgrading your weapons this time around isn't so obnoxious. The worst part of the combat though, and honestly the game in general, is that weapons can be really hard to use, since while they may look awesome, their animations last literally forever and will be something that you're probably just staggered out of. I also think that this combat style is at the point where it needs a big evolution in terms of feel for the next mainline game, because I can see constantly rolling and attacking this same way getting really tiring after a while. This is probably going to be a hot take. It's not even like second place is bad, it's literally the second best spot on a ranking, but I think this will make some people mad because it's almost unanimously agreed upon that Sekiro has the absolute best combat in the entire series. And while I obviously think it's close, and I don't think that opinion is crazy at all, I think people act like the combat in this game is perfect without really focusing on every aspect of it. Now, it is still amazing because the combat loop gets really satisfying when you understand how to play, and the dynamic between parrying and attacking is masterfully done. The no build variety sucks, but at least you have different shinobi prosthetics that spice the game up. The issue with these is that some of them aren't viable, and spirit emblems are really annoying. I'd say I'd agree on limiting the use of these tools, but I definitely wouldn't do it with consumables, since they make new players want to avoid these tools for most of the game in fear of wasting all their spirit emblems, which in my opinion is bad game design. Also, combat arts are awesome and a really cool way to reward you as you progress the game. And I feel like it's really cool that you could change your combat art based on whatever boss you're on to fit the fight more, and that obviously adds diversity. So while Sekiro's combat may be the closest to perfect in the series, it's not the most interesting. Because in my opinion, Bloodborne has the most interesting, diverse, and, while not perfect, coolest combat in the series. First off, the movement is amazing as it feels so much looser than the other Soulsborne games while avoiding feeling overwhelming. Things like dashing instead of rolling when locked on is awesome, and the rally system of being able to regain health if you're aggressive enough, quickly enough is a really nice change of pace. But mainly, trick weapons are the coolest thing in the entire series, and you can't change my mind. Being able to change modes and movesets depending on your situation in a fight is cool enough, but being able to do that as a unique attack for extra damage is even better. It does have a lot less build variety than the other Soulsborne games, but the quality of all the weapons feel way better because of this. And while the quality isn't as concentrated as something like Sekiro, the variety keeps it from getting old, even if it's not as perfect. So in my opinion, Bloodborne has the best combat design in the entire series, and in conclusion, we need a Bloodborne 2.